Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring at the main screen with cold eyes. The ship hummed around her as thousands of crew members worked at their stations. She had commanded this vessel for 3 years, but nothing had prepared her for what appeared on the display today. "Ma'am, we're getting another transmission from the unknown fleet," said Commander Jake Morrison from his position at the tactical station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he analyzed the incoming data. "They're still holding position at the edge of our solar system." Lisa nodded and turned to face the communications officer. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The main screen flickered and changed. A massive alien face appeared, filling the entire display. The creature had dark purple skin and 4 yellow eyes that seemed to burn with contempt. Its mouth was filled with sharp teeth, and strange markings covered its forehead. "I am Supreme Warlord Thexvar of the Korthani Empire," the alien said in perfect English. Its voice was deep and harsh, like grinding metal. "Your species has been chosen to serve our great civilization. Dr. Susan Walsh, the ship's language." Expert leaned forward in her chair. She had been working for hours to understand the alien language patterns. "Admiral, their translation technology is incredibly advanced. They've learned our entire language in just a few hours," the alien continued, speaking. "We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have conquered 400 species. Your resistance would be meaningless." The creature's 4 eyes focused directly on the camera. "You will surrender 80% of your population to work in our factories and mines. You will destroy all your weapons and military ships. You will give us half of everything your worlds produce each year." Lisa felt her jaw clench. Around the bridge, she could see her crew members looking shocked and angry. Commander Morrison's hands had stopped moving over his controls. Even Dr. Walsh had gone pale. "If you agree to these terms," Thexvar said, "your species will be allowed to continue existing under our protection. You have 7 of your days to decide. If you refuse, we will take everything by force." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. "Captain Burke is requesting immediate communication from the UES Pioneer," said the communications officer, breaking the silence. "Put him through," Lisa ordered. Captain Ryan Burke's face appeared on a smaller screen. He looked shaken. "Admiral, you need to see what these things just did to the Titan system. They destroyed 3 moons just to show us their power." "Send me the data," Lisa said. The tactical display changed to show the outer edges of their solar system. 3 points of light that had been moons around Saturn simply vanished. No explosion, no debris field. They were just gone. "How is that possible?" Morrison asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, another communication came through. This time it was from Earth itself. President Helen Martinez appeared on the screen, her face grim. "Admiral Carter, I need you to return to Earth immediately. We're calling an emergency session of the United Earth Council." The president paused. "Every colony leader, every military commander, every scientist we can reach. We have 6 days to decide the fate of humanity." Lisa nodded. "We'll be there in 18 hours, Madam President." After the transmission ended, Lisa turned to address her crew. "You all heard what they want. They want to turn us into slaves. They want to take our children, our families, our freedom." She paused, looking at each face on the bridge. "But we're not going to let that happen." "Ma'am," Morrison said, "their fleet has over 2,000 ships. Each one is bigger than anything we've ever built. Their weapons can make moons disappear. How can we possibly fight them?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "I don't know yet, Commander, but I know one thing. Humans don't kneel to anyone." Dr. Walsh spoke up from her station. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their communication patterns. There's something strange about the way they speak. They're not just threatening us. They sound desperate, like they're running from something even worse." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. The fear in their voices when they talk about time limits. The way they keep mentioning their empire's strength, like they're trying to convince themselves as much as us. I think they need us more than they're letting on. Lisa considered this information. Keep analyzing everything they send us, Doctor. Any weakness we can find might save us. The UES Defiance turned toward Earth, its engines pushing the massive ship through space at maximum speed. In the lower decks, thousands of crew members prepared for what might be humanity's final battle. In the research labs, scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology they had witnessed. Far below in the classified sections of the ship, Dr. Karen Phillips received an urgent message on her personal communicator. The quantum physics research she had been working on for years, the theories that everyone said were too dangerous to test, were suddenly very important. As Earth grew larger on the main screen, Lisa Carter made a silent promise. Whatever the cost, whatever the sacrifice, humanity would find a way to fight back. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They had given humans time to prepare, and humans were very good at preparing for war. The United Earth Council chamber buzzed with angry voices as representatives from every human colony argued about their response to the alien demands. President Helen Martinez sat at the head of the great circular table, watching as her advisors and colony leaders debated the impossible choice before them. "We should negotiate," said Ambassador Claire Hudson from the Mars colonies. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her voice carried the weight of representing 5 million colonists. "Maybe we can reduce their demands. 80% is too much, but perhaps we could offer 20%. Senator Joe Bennett from the Centauri system slammed his hand on the table. "You want to give them our people as slaves? Have you lost your mind? We should evacuate the core systems and retreat to the outer colonies." "And then what?" demanded General Patrick Stone, head of Earth Defense Forces. The old soldier's gray beard was neatly trimmed, but his eyes showed the strain of the past 2 days. "Run forever? Hide in the dark between stars while they hunt us down one by one?" Dr. Alex Turner from the Luna Universities adjusted his glasses nervously. "General, with respect, survival under oppression is better than extinction. If we fight, they'll kill everyone. At least if we surrender, some of us will live." Admiral Lisa Carter entered the chamber and took her seat at the military section of the table. She had spent the journey from the outer system reviewing every piece of data they had on the alien fleet. The numbers were not encouraging. "Admiral," President Martinez said, "please give us your assessment." Lisa stood and activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The Corthani fleet appeared in 3 dimensions, showing over 2,000 vessels arranged in perfect formation. "Their smallest ships are twice the size of our largest battleships," she began. "Their main battlecruisers are over 3 kilometers long. We estimate their fleet has enough firepower to glass every inhabited world in our system within hours." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "However," Lisa continued, "we've learned something important from our intelligence gathering." She touched a control, and the display changed to show communication intercepts. "Captain Amy Sullivan and her stealth ship UES Shadow have been monitoring their transmissions. The Corthani aren't just another conquering empire. They're running from something." Commander Lisa Hayes, who had arrived with Sullivan's intelligence data, stepped forward. "The Corthani home region near the galactic core is under attack by something they call the Devourers. They need resources and slave labor to build defenses, not for conquest, but for survival. That makes them more dangerous, not less," Senator Bennett said grimly. "Desperate enemies don't show mercy." President Martinez turned to Dr. Karen Phillips, who had been quietly sitting in the corner reviewing data on her tablet. The quantum physicist looked tired, but her eyes were sharp with concentration. "Dr. Phillips, I understand you have some theoretical work that might be relevant to our situation." Karen stood slowly. She was a small woman with brown hair and kind eyes. but when she spoke, everyone in the room listened carefully. For the past 5 years, I've been working on something called zero-point energy manipulation, she said. The theory suggests we can extract enormous amounts of energy from empty space itself. More importantly, we might be able to weaponize it. Colonel Steve Adams, head of Advanced Weapons Development, leaned forward. What kind of weapons are we talking about, Doctor? Weapons that could theoretically tear holes in space-time itself, Karen replied quietly. Weapons that could make their gravity-based technology useless, but the risks are enormous. If we make a mistake, we could destroy our entire solar system. The room erupted in arguments. Some representatives demanded immediate surrender to avoid such risks. Others insisted that any chance of victory was worth taking. President Martinez raised her hand for silence. Dr. Phillips, how long would you need to develop these weapons? If we strip resources from every human world, if every scientist and engineer works together, if we get incredibly lucky, maybe 4 days. That's cutting it very close to their deadline, General Stone observed. Admiral Carter spoke up. Madam President, there's something else we need to consider. Commander Morrison's analysis of their fleet composition suggests they're not prepared for a real fight. They've spent 3,000 years conquering primitive civilizations. They've never faced an enemy with advanced technology and the will to use it. Captain Sullivan's report had included detailed scans of Corthani ship designs. Their vessels are built for intimidation and overwhelming firepower against weak opponents, Lisa continued. But they have weaknesses. Their shields operate on gravity manipulation, which means they might be vulnerable to quantum disruption. Dr. Turner shook his head. You're talking about gambling with the lives of every human being alive. What if your weapons don't work? What if they retaliate by destroying Earth before we can fire a shot? Then we die fighting instead of living as slaves, said Captain Ryan Burke, who had joined the meeting via communication link from his ship. My crew has voted unanimously. We'd rather take our chances in battle than watch our children grow up in Corthani work camps. President Martinez looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders. Some showed fear, others determination, but all of them understood the weight of the decision they faced. There's one more factor to consider, said Dr. Susan Walsh, the linguistics expert who had been analyzing Corthani communications. Their empire isn't as stable as they claim. I've detected communication patterns that suggest many of their subject species are held in line only through fear. If we can defeat their fleet decisively, it might trigger uprisings throughout their territory. Ambassador Hudson frowned. That's a lot of assumptions, Doctor. What if you're wrong? What if defeating their fleet just brings a larger force down? On us? Then we'll face that problem when it comes, Admiral Carter said firmly. But right now, we have a choice between certain slavery and possible freedom. I know which one I choose. President Martinez stood slowly. The weight of humanity's future rested on her next words. The vote will be taken in 1 hour, she announced. Each representative will cast their vote for their entire colony or region. Whatever we decide together. As the representatives filed out to contact their homeworlds, Dr. Phillips remained behind with the military leadership. If we vote to fight, General Stone asked quietly, can you really build these weapons in time? Karen looked at the holographic display still showing. The massive Corthani fleet. I don't know, General, but I'm going to try. 1 hour later, the votes were counted. By a margin of 67%, humanity chose to reject the Corthani ultimatum and fight for their freedom. President Martinez immediately authorized the Prometheus Protocol, named after the mythical figure who stole fire from the gods. Every human world would contribute everything they had to build weapons that could challenge the laws of physics themselves. They had 4 days to save their species. Dr. Karen Phillips had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the quantum equations covering every screen in the Titan research facility. Around her, the brightest scientists from every human world worked frantically to turn theoretical physics into weapons of war. The resonance frequency is still too unstable, said Dr. Nick Cooper, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cold temperature of the research lab. He had been working on the quantum field generators that would power their new weapons. Every time we try to contain the zero-point energy, it threatens to tear the containment field apart. Dr. Beth Morgan looked up from her workstation where she was designing the targeting systems. Maybe that's the point, Nick. We don't need to contain it perfectly. We just need to control where it goes when it breaks free. Karen nodded slowly. Beth is right. We're not trying to build a power plant. We're building a weapon that uses controlled destruction of space-time itself. In orbit around Earth, Captain Ryan Burke watched as his ship, the UES Pioneer, was torn apart and rebuilt with the new quantum technology. The engineering crews worked in shifts around the clock, installing equipment that had been designed and built in just 2 days. Captain, said his chief engineer, Lieutenant Tony Garcia, I have to tell you, I have no idea how any of this is supposed to work. The power requirements alone should vaporize the ship. Burke nodded grimly. None of us understand it, Tony. We just have to trust that the scientists know what they're doing. Admiral Lisa Carter coordinated the largest military mobilization in human history from the command center on Luna. Every available ship was being retrofitted with the experimental quantum weapons. The process was dangerous and rushed, but they had no choice. Admiral, said Commander Jake Morrison, we've lost 2 ships during the retrofit process. The UES Defender and the UES Courage both suffered catastrophic containment failures during quantum drive installation. Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. 600 good people had died in those explosions, vaporized instantly when the experimental technology went wrong. How many ships do we have ready for combat? 47 completed retrofits, with another 30 still in progress. The factory ships from the asteroid belt are working as fast as they can, but we're running out of time. On the outer edge of the solar system, Captain Amy Sullivan's stealth ship UES Shadow moved carefully through the asteroid field, where her crew was placing quantum resonance mines. These devices would amplify the effects of their weapons during the coming battle, assuming the weapons worked at all. The mine placement is complete in sectors 7 through 12, reported her weapons officer, Sergeant Bill Wright. But I have to say, Captain, these things make me nervous. The energy readings are off the charts. Sullivan nodded as she watched the tactical display. They make me nervous too, Sergeant. But if Dr. Phillips is right, these mines will turn our weapons into something that can actually hurt the Corthani fleet. Back on Earth, President Helen Martinez addressed the planet in a live broadcast. Behind her, the skyline of New Geneva showed the massive construction projects that had transformed the city overnight. Every available resource was being converted to weapons production. My fellow humans, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos around her, in 2 days, we will face the greatest challenge in our species' history. We have chosen to fight rather than surrender our freedom. Every person on every world is contributing to our defense. The response from the colonies was overwhelming. Factory ships that normally produced consumer goods now manufactured exotic matter containment systems. Agricultural worlds sent their entire populations to work in weapons factories. Even children contributed by donating computing time from their personal devices to run weapon calibration programs. Dr. Susan Walsh made a breakthrough in her analysis of Corthani communications. Working from her station aboard the UES Defiance, she discovered something that could change everything. Admiral Carter, she called excitedly. You need to hear this. I've been monitoring their internal communications, and their empire is much more fragile than they want us to believe. Lisa hurried over to Walsh's station. What did you find, Doctor? Listen to this transmission between their fleet commanders. Walsh played a recording of alien voices speaking in their harsh language, with English subtitles appearing on screen. The subject species in Sector 9 are asking questions about our defeat at Kepler Prime, one voice said. Silence them, replied another. If word spreads that we can be beaten, the entire outer rim will rise in rebellion. They're terrified of their own subjects, Walsh explained. If we can defeat their fleet decisively, it might trigger uprisings throughout their territory. Their 3,000-year empire could collapse overnight. This information reached Dr. Phillips just as she was making the final adjustments to the quantum weapon designs. The pressure was enormous, but knowing that victory could free hundreds of enslaved species gave her new determination. "How are the weapon tests going?" asked General Patrick Stone as he visited the Titan facility. "We've had mixed results," Karen admitted. "The weapons work, but they're incredibly dangerous to use. We've calculated that there's a 15% chance that firing them will create a chain reaction that destroys our entire solar system." The general was quiet for a moment. "And if we don't fire them? Then the Korthani will destroy us for certain. 15% chance of disaster versus 100% chance of slavery and death," Stone mused. "I'll take those odds." Captain Burke's ship was among the first to complete the weapon retrofits. The UES Pioneer now carried a quantum cannon that could theoretically punch holes through space-time itself. But the first test firing had unexpected results. "Captain," reported his science officer, Dr. Lisa Park, "the test shot didn't just destroy the target asteroid. It created a temporary rift in space that lasted for 3 minutes. Anything that went through that rift just disappeared." "Disappeared to where?" Burke asked. "We don't know, sir. Maybe another dimension, maybe another time. The mathematics are beyond anything we've seen before." Admiral Carter received similar reports from other ships completing their retrofits. The quantum weapons were more powerful than anyone had imagined, but they were also more unpredictable. "Ma'am," said Commander Morrison, "we've detected Korthani scout ships beginning detailed scans of our defensive positions. They're not just gathering intelligence. They're preparing for a complete tactical analysis." Lisa nodded grimly. "They're getting ready to attack. How much time do we have left?" 18 hours until their deadline expires. In the research facility, Dr. Phillips was putting the finishing touches on the weapon control systems. Every calculation had to be perfect. One mistake could destroy everything they were trying to protect. "The quantum resonance patterns are locked in," announced Dr. Cooper. "All ships should be able to synchronize their weapons for maximum effect." Dr. Morgan looked up from her targeting computer. "I've programmed the firing solutions to account for the space-time distortions our weapons will create. But honestly, we're guessing about most of this." "Educated guessing," Karen corrected. "We're scientists, not miracle workers." But sometimes science and miracles look very similar. As the final hours ticked away, humanity's fleet took position in the outer solar system. 73 ships now carried weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. It was the most powerful fleet humans had ever assembled, but against over 2,000 Korthani vessels, it seemed pitifully small. President Martinez sent a final message to Admiral Carter. "Admiral, the fate of our species is in your hands. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that humanity chose to stand and fight rather than kneel and submit." Lisa Carter looked out at the stars where her fleet waited. In a few hours, they would either win the most impossible victory in galactic history, or they would die in the attempt. Either way, the galaxy would never forget what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge of extinction. The Korthani deadline arrived with their massive fleet advancing slowly toward Earth. Supreme Warlord Thexvar opened communications one final time, his 4 yellow eyes burning with confidence on the main screen of every human ship. "Humans." His harsh voice echoed across space. "Your time for decision has ended. Surrender now and accept our generous terms, or face complete destruction." President Helen Martinez appeared on screens throughout the Korthani fleet, her voice calm and clear. "Humanity rejects your tribute. We reject your terms. We reject your empire." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Come and take it. Admiral, Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as over 2,000 alien ships began their final approach. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, knowing that the next few hours would determine whether humanity survived or perished. "All ships report ready for combat," said Commander Jake Morrison from his tactical station. "Quantum weapons are charged and synchronized." "Very well," Lisa said calmly. "Begin the attack." The first shots came from Captain Ryan Burke's UES Pioneer. The quantum cannon fired with a sound like reality tearing apart. The beam struck the lead Corthani battleship and simply erased it from existence. Where a 3-kilometer vessel had been, there was now only empty space and confused debris from nearby ships. The effect on the Corthani fleet was immediate. Their perfect formation wavered as commanders tried to understand what had just happened. Their gravity shields, which had protected them for 3,000 years, had been completely useless. "All ships, open fire," Admiral Carter ordered. 73 human ships unleashed weapons that bent the laws of physics. Quantum beams tore through Corthani hulls like they were made of paper. Space-time distortions trapped entire enemy battle, groups in temporal loops, causing them to experience the same moment of destruction over and over again. The Corthani responded with devastating firepower of their own. 3 human cruisers vanished in seconds as gravity weapons compressed them into points of impossibly dense matter. The UES Defender was torn apart by forces that twisted space around it until the ship simply came apart at the molecular level. "We're losing ships fast," Morrison reported, "but their casualties are much worse. We've destroyed over 300 enemy vessels in the first 10 minutes. Captain Amy Sullivan's stealth ship UES Shadow had positioned itself near the center of the Corthani formation. "Admiral, I'm ready to activate the quantum mines." "Do it," Lisa ordered. Throughout the battlefield, hidden mines suddenly activated. The quantum resonance effect amplified every human weapon within the system while disrupting Corthani technology on a fundamental level. Enemy ships began exploding as their own gravity weapons became unstable. Dr. Karen Phillips monitored the battle from the Titan Research Facility, watching with growing alarm as her instruments detected massive distortions in space-time. "The quantum reactions are cascading beyond our calculations," she reported to Admiral Carter. "We're creating permanent rifts that could spread across light years." "Can you contain them?" Lisa asked while dodging fire from a Corthani heavy cruiser. "I'm trying, but the energy levels are off our charts. Every shot we fire makes the problem worse." Supreme Warlord Thexavar rallied his remaining forces for a desperate push toward Earth. His flagship, a massive vessel called the Infinite Conquest, led over 1,000 surviving ships in a final assault. "Admiral," said Commander Lisa Hayes from her position monitoring enemy communications, "their command structure is breaking down. The Warlord is ordering his ships to ram our positions if their weapons fail." Admiral Carter studied the tactical display. The human fleet was down to 41 operational ships, but they had destroyed more than half the Corthani force. However, Thexavar's desperate gambit could still succeed if his ships reached Earth. "All ships, intercept the enemy command group," she ordered. "The UES Defiance will engage their flagship directly." Captain Burke's Pioneer led the charge, its quantum weapons carving a path through the Corthani formation. Behind him, the remaining human fleet followed, their experimental weapons turning space itself into a weapon. The battle for Earth's survival came down to a duel between the UES Defiance and the Infinite Conquest. The 2 massive ships circled each other like ancient gladiators, trading devastating blows. "Their shields are adapting to our quantum frequency," Morrison reported as their shots began doing less damage. "Then we change frequency," Lisa replied grimly. "Activate the experimental overcharge sequence." "Ma'am, that could destroy us along with them. Better than letting them reach Earth. The UES Defiance's quantum cannon charged to levels that made the ship's hull glow with exotic radiation. When it fired, the beam didn't just destroy the Infinite Conquest. It created a spherical void in space 3 kilometers across, where the enemy flagship and everything around it simply ceased to exist. The effect on the remaining Korthani fleet was immediate and total. Seeing their invincible leader and his mighty ship simply vanish broke their will to fight. The surviving vessels turned and fled toward the edge of the system. "They're running," Morrison announced with disbelief. "The entire fleet is retreating." But Admiral Carter had planned for this possibility. "Activate pursuit protocol. Don't let any of them escape to report our capabilities." Captain Sullivan's stealth ships had been positioned along the Korthani escape routes. As the alien fleet fled, they found human ships appearing behind them, weapons firing. The quantum pursuit drives allowed the human vessels to follow the retreating enemies through their own hyperspace corridors. What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. The Korthani ships, designed for attacking helpless worlds, were picked apart one by one as they tried to flee. Their gravity weapons were useless against quantum technology, and their shields provided no protection against weapons that operated outside normal physics. Dr. Phillips watched the energy readings with growing concern. "Admiral, the space-time rifts are stabilizing, but some of them are permanent. We've created scars in reality that will take decades to heal naturally." "Can they be repaired?" President Martinez asked from Earth. "Eventually, yes. But we'll need to develop entirely new technologies to fix what we've broken." The last Korthani ship was destroyed 6 hours after the battle began. Of their massive fleet of over 2,000 vessels, not a single ship escaped to carry word of their defeat back to their empire. Admiral Carter surveyed the aftermath from her damaged bridge. The human fleet had been reduced to 28 operational ships, but they had achieved the impossible. They had not just defeated the Korthani, Empire's invasion force, they had completely annihilated it. "Ma'am," said Morrison quietly, "we're receiving transmissions from the outer colonies. Word of our victory is spreading faster than light through quantum communication networks." "And the Korthani territories?" Commander Hayes looked up from her communications station. "We're detecting massive uprisings throughout their empire. Dozens of subject species are declaring independence. The news of their fleet's destruction is causing their entire civilization to collapse." Captain Burke's voice came through from the Pioneer. "Admiral, my science officer is detecting something interesting. The space-time rifts we created are sending out quantum echoes that are being detected across the galaxy. Every advanced civilization within 1,000 light-years now knows that someone just fought a war using reality itself as a weapon." Lisa Carter looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. They had proven that even the most powerful empire could be defeated by those willing to risk everything for their freedom. "Set course for the Korthani home systems," she ordered. "We have an empire to liberate and a galaxy to explore." The war was over, but humanity's real journey was just beginning. 3 months after the Battle of Seoul, Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation as it approached the former Korthani homeworld of Nexus Prime. The planet below them was a mixture of magnificent cities and ugly scars where orbital bombardments had destroyed military installations during the recent uprising. "The planetary government is requesting permission to formally surrender," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communications station. "They're offering to turn over all remaining Korthani leadership to human custody." Admiral Lisa Carter, now commanding the Terran Liberation Fleet, considered the request. "Tell them we accept their surrender, but we're not here as conquerors. We're here as liberators." Dr. Susan Walsh had spent the past months working with alien linguists to establish communication with dozens of species that had been freed from Korthani rule. Her latest report showed the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. "Admiral," she said, reviewing data on her tablet, "we've now made contact with over 300 liberated species across 12,000 star systems. The Korthani Empire didn't just control territory. They had enslaved entire civilizations for thousands of years." President Helen Martinez arrived at Nexus Prime aboard the diplomatic vessel UES Unity. She had come to establish the new government that would replace the fallen empire. Unlike the Korthani, humanity had chosen to create a voluntary alliance rather than rule through force. "Madam President," said Ambassador Claire Hudson, who now served as humanity's chief diplomat to the liberated worlds, "the representatives from 47 species have arrived for the founding conference of the Terran Federation." Martinez nodded as she looked out at the massive space station, where the conference would be held. "Have they all agreed to the basic principles? Voluntary membership, shared defense, but each species maintains sovereignty over their own worlds?" "Yes." "Ma'am, they're amazed that we're offering them true independence instead of just replacing one master with another." Dr. Karen Phillips had established a new research facility in the Nexus system where human and alien scientists worked together to understand and improve the quantum technologies that had won the war. The work was both exciting and dangerous. "Good news," she explained to President Martinez during a tour of the facility, "is that we've learned to control the space-time distortions much better. The bad news is that we've detected something troubling from the galactic core." "What kind of troubling?" Martinez asked. Karen activated a holographic display showing deep space sensor readings. "Remember how the Korthani were fleeing from something they called the Devourers? We've detected massive energy signatures moving this way from the galactic center. Whatever drove the Korthani out is still coming." Captain Ryan Burke had been promoted to admiral and now commanded the exploration fleet that was mapping former Korthani territory. His flagship, the UES Pioneer, had been completely rebuilt with advanced technology shared by grateful alien allies. "The good news keeps getting better," he reported to Admiral Carter. "The Zephyrian shipyards are offering to build us vessels using their crystal matrix technology. The Arcadian defense systems could protect our worlds from almost anything, and the celestial libraries contain scientific knowledge that could advance human technology by centuries." But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Captain Amy Sullivan's long-range reconnaissance missions had detected something that changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. "Admiral Carter," she reported from deep space, "we've received a transmission from the galactic core. It's not from the Devourers, it's from something else entirely." The transmission played on the main screen of the UES Defiance. The being that appeared was unlike anything they had encountered before. It looked almost human, but its skin glowed with soft blue light and its eyes held the wisdom of eons. "Greetings, young warriors of Terra," the being said in perfect English. "I am Keeper Valdris of the Ancient Assembly. We have observed your recent victory over the Korthani Empire with great interest." President Martinez joined Admiral Carter for the historic first contact with the galaxy's oldest civilization. "We are the remnants of the first species to achieve galactic civilization 10 million years ago," Valdris continued. "We have watched countless empires rise and fall, but none have impressed us as much as your recent achievement." "What do you want from us?" Martinez asked directly. "Nothing," Valdris replied, surprising them. "We wish to offer you something instead. Knowledge, friendship, and warning. The force that drove the Korthani from the galactic core is indeed dangerous, but it is not what you might expect." The ancient explained that the Devourers were not conquerors, but rather a force of nature, cleaning up the galaxy by consuming civilizations that had become stagnant and corrupt. The Korthani had been marked for elimination not because they were weak, but because they had stopped growing and evolving. "Your species interests us because you achieved something we thought impossible," Valdris said. "You destroyed a galactic empire in less than a week, using weapons that manipulate reality itself. More importantly, you chose to liberate rather than conquer. This suggests potential we have not seen in millions of years." Dr. Phillips leaned forward with scientific curiosity. "Are you saying the Devourers might not be hostile to us? They will test you, as they test all species. But your victory over the Korthani suggests you might pass their examination." Few civilizations have ever shown such rapid advancement combined with moral restraint. General Patrick Stone, now head of the Terran Federation Defense Forces, had a more practical concern. What kind of test are we talking about? They will present you with challenges designed to reveal your true nature. How you respond will determine whether they see you as a threat to be eliminated or a species worthy of galactic citizenship. The conversation continued for hours as humanity learned about galactic politics on a scale they had never imagined. The ancient assembly served as advisors and record keepers, watching over the galaxy's development without interfering directly. 6 months later, the first Terran Federation Council meeting convened on the newly constructed Station Unity in orbit, around Earth. Representatives from over 100 species gathered to establish the principles that would guide their alliance. Admiral Carter addressed the assembly in her new role as the Federation's first Supreme Commander. 6 months ago, humanity faced extinction. Today, we stand as equals among the stars, not as conquerors, but as liberators and friends. The Zephyrian representative, a crystalline being named Harmony of Light, spoke for many when she said, "The humans have shown us that slavery is not inevitable, that empires can be defeated, and that freedom is worth any sacrifice." Dr. Phillips presented her latest research to the Federation Science Council. Working with alien partners, she had developed new quantum technologies that were safer and more powerful than the weapons used against the Korthani. "We've learned to heal the space-time rifts we created during the war," she explained. "More importantly, we've developed defensive applications of quantum manipulation that could protect entire star systems from attack." President Martinez stood before the Federation Assembly for her inaugural address as the first president of the Terran Federation. "When the Korthani demanded tribute from humanity, they expected us to kneel and submit like so many species before us," she said. "Instead, we chose to stand and fight. That choice has freed hundreds of worlds and billions of beings from slavery." She paused, looking out at the diverse gathering of representatives from across the galaxy. "But our real work is just beginning. We have shown that empires can fall and that freedom can triumph over oppression. Now we must prove that free peoples can work together to build something better than what we destroyed." The galaxy had indeed paid tribute, but not to an empire. It had paid tribute to the idea that no being should kneel before another, that freedom was worth any price, and that sometimes the smallest voices could shake the foundations of the universe itself. Far from Earth, in the deep space between galaxies, ancient sensors detected the quantum signatures of humanity's weapons. The Devourers turned their attention toward this new species that had announced itself so dramatically. The tests were coming, but humanity would face them as they had faced the Korthani Empire, together, unafraid, and absolutely determined to remain free. The story of human expansion into the galaxy had only just begun, but already the stars themselves had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species willing to weaponize reality itself in defense of their freedom, and never, ever demand tribute from humanity.